republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
How about now? Okay, there we go. All right, everybody, welcome to the July 7th, 2025 Jackson Township Planning Board meeting. This meeting has been appropriately published in all the places that it needs to be according to the Open Public Meetings Act. Ms. Sherwood?
Roll call, please.
Mr. Bernstein?
Here.
Mr. Marzo? Here. Mr. Heller?
Here.
Mr. Hudak? Mr. Rogers? Here. Mr. Treamer?
Here.
Ms. Rose?
Here.
Mr. Weingart? Mr. Sullivan?
Here.
And Dr. Campbell.
Here. I'll accept a motion for the payment of voucher for recording secretary for tonight, please.
So moved, Sullivan.
Second, Heller.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Bernstein?
Yes.
Mr. Marzo?
Yes.
Mr. Heller?
Yes.
Mr. Rogers? Yes. Mr. Treamer?
Yes.
Ms. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Weingart? Oh, sorry, he's not here. Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Dr. Campbell.
Yes. We'll take a motion for approval of the minutes for May 19th, regular meeting. Roll call, please.
Motion to approve. DeMarzo.
Second, Bernstein.
Mr. Bernstein?
Yes.
Mr. Marzo?
Yes.
Mr. Heller?
Yes.
Mr. Rogers? Yes. Mr. Treamer?
Yes.
Ms. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Dr. Campbell.
Yes. We have some schedule changes. Block 21702, lots 37 and 38 is on hold until further notice. July 21st, meeting is canceled, and the next meeting will be August 4th. Block 840, do we have to vote on that, on these, or can we vote for them all together? Good. Block 8401, Lot 5, 141 North County Line Road LLC is carried from July 21st to August 4th with notice required. We'll accept a motion, please.
So moved, Sullivan.
Second, Bernstein.
You want a roll
Roll
call?
call, please.
Mr. Bernstein?
Yes.
Mr. Marzo?
Yes.
Mr. Heller?
Yes.
Mr. Rogers? Mr. Treamer?
Yes.
Ms. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Dr. Campbell.
Yes. I am pleased to announce that the master plan is in the very final stages and will be presented to the public on Monday, July 28th at our regular meeting times. We're also meeting every Monday this month just to clean it up, so we're hopeful that all things will be finished, and we're looking forward to getting this process on the books. Okay. I think we're down to engineering and planning matters, gentlemen? Thank you. And legal matters.
Not at this time.
Excellent. Any other board matters for discussion? Happily, no. All right. We're ready for applicants, please. Block 11701. Mr. Alfieri?
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Salvatore Alfieri, Cleary, Giacobbe, Alfieri, and Jacobs on behalf of the applicant. This is an extension of time request. PDS submitted a letter, an end application earlier this year, and then I supplemented it by a letter dated May 30th. It's a 5 residential lot subdivision, and the applicant is attempting now to bring public water and sewer to the project, and as a result, that permitting process is going to take longer than it would normally take. So the 1-year extension request has been amended to request that it be extended through June 19th of 2027, which would be a 2-year statutory protection period. And that's, for the board members' edification, it simply means that we're protected against zone changes during that time period. But the applicant and our engineers are here, PDS is here if you have questions, but otherwise, we're seeking that 2-year extension rather than the one that was originally requested.
Sounds like a good idea.
Usually is, yes.
Any concerns from board members? Shall we just vote to approve?
It's a customary.
I'd like to make a motion to approve a 2-year time extension to block 11701 lots 9.04, 9.05, 9.06, et cetera, Lakewood Investment LLC.
Second, Dreamer.
Do a roll call, please.
Mr. Bernstein?
Yes.
Ms. DeMarzo?
Yes.
Mr. Heller? Mr. Rogers? Mr. Dreamer?
Yes.
Ms. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Dr. Camp?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, good night, everyone.
I'm sure we'll see you before that, however.
Before that, yes, I hope so.
All right, block 19501, lot 21. I don't see Ms. Jennings.
Ian, you could just.
You're gonna run it?
Do it anyway.
Is she in the other room? Okay,
Yeah, you should.
he was quick. And so were we.
I mean, you've done this so many times, you could probably just do it yourself. Yeah, yeah,
Please
go
do.
ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, that is a straight triangle.
He's not here yet.
Holy shit.
If he comes, we'll bring him in.
Wow, that is.
Yep.
Well, this gives us time to take a look. It's, I'm cold. Really? I walked in here, I was cold.
Yes. Thank you. My eyes just aren't that good anymore. It's weird that they have the mikvah all by itself way out in the corner here. Oh, this was taken today. Or done today, rather. It's not taken, it's not built yet.
That's a really good question.
Synagogue and shul, shul is really the Yiddish word for synagogue, but you could have a shul that's not I'll call it
A big building.
a big building. Shul is usually more, I'll call it localized and residential.
So why would they, isn't this a synagogue?
What do they,
They're calling it a shul.
shul is the Yiddish term, it covers everything. Yeah.
I was trying to
Yeah.
figure out. what-
Shul covers everything, but shul is usually more of
It's
a,
a house of prayer.
but it's usually more residential in style, which this is more of a residential. It's not this big conglomeration of thousands of people.
Yeah, but the one out on Meadows.
I would say that's more of a
That's a
synagogue, yeah. But shul is just the Yiddish. It's Yiddish for house of worship and synagogue.
Ms. Jennings?
Thank you. Good evening. For the record, I'm Donna Jennings from the law firm of Wilens, Goldman, and Spitzer. On behalf of the applicant, I apologize for being tardy. With that said, the board is aware the applicant is seeking preliminary and final major site plan and minor subdivision approval with bulk variances to construct a house of worship with an accessory religious bathing facility, otherwise known as a mikvah, on property located at 26 Whitesville Road, identified as Block 19501, Lot 21. By way of background, on November 15, 2023, the Township Zoning Board of Adjustment memorialized a resolution which granted the applicant a conditional use variance from Ordinance Section 244-115 to construct a house of worship with the accessory mikvah on the property. As the board is aware, new amendments to the Jackson Ordinance no longer categorizes a house of worship as a conditional use in the RG2 zone. Rather, houses of worship are now permitted uses in the RG2 zone, as are accessory religious bathing facilities. Notably, the application that was previously granted approval for the conditional use variance was bifurcated, with the understanding that the applicant would return to the board to obtain site plan approval. The property is approximately 2.5 acres and is currently improved with a 1.5-story dwelling, canine boarding and day camp building, and a parking area. The applicant is seeking minor subdivision approval to subdivide Lot 21 into 2 new lots, proposed to be designated as Lot 21.01, which is approximately 1.79 acres, and Lot 21.02, which is approximately 0.65 acres. Finally, the applicant is seeking bulk variances for minimum lot depth for both lots and maximum height of the rooftop dome. As will be discussed by the applicant's planner, the record will show the applicant satisfies both the positive and the negative criteria to warrant the granting of requested relief. In support of the application, I have Mr. Borden, the planner, sitting to my left, as well as Malky Rubb, the architect, and John Ray, the traffic engineer. I also has a representative of the applicant in the audience. If needed, we'll call him up to testify as well. As a matter of record keeping, we are in receipt of the following report. the Board Planners Review Letter dated June 30th, 2025, the Board Engineers Review Letter dated July 2nd, 2025, and the Township Tree Specialist Review Letter dated July 2nd, 2025. With that, we'll have Mr. Borden sworn in and we'll begin.
Gentlemen, any opening comments?
No. Ms. Jennings properly and adequately satisfied or described the project. I think there was some discussion between Mr. Peters and Ms. Jennings as far as the variances, which we'll get into. I think I called the coverage off, a variance out, which wasn't, may not be needed. My biggest question, and we'll let the application proceed, is the actual need for this minor subdivision. I understand if the development of the house of worship is above 2 acres, there's certain standards that that would apply. In my mind, it's pretty clear we're subdividing this off so we can get below 2 acres and have another set of standards to govern the development. If the board was so inclined to look at the house of worship and assume it's less than 2, even though it's not, we could eliminate the need for the subdivision, which is, in my mind, basically not buildable. It's environmentally constrained, and eventually it's going to wind up for the public to take care of. They'll stop paying their taxes on it, and the public will, be burdened with the maintenance of that lot. So just some discussion as far as the actual need for it, the subdivision. That's all.
I think Mr. Klee covered the opening comments.
Okay. Maybe we can hear, we gotta swear him in, because he's never been here before.
Who are you again?
Yeah.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, spell your last for the record.
Sure. Ian Borden, President of Professional Design Services, licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey for too many years, and been appearing in front of this board for too many years. Thank you.
But maybe you could explain to us then why the need?
And the board accepts his credentials?
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you. Okay. Well, I think, let me give some background on the property first, and I think that'll help me answer that. So I just want to refer to Exhibit A1. I pre-marked 4 exhibits, provided copies of the boards, and they're on the screen there. The property, this is an aerial photograph of the site. The property is shown in yellow triangle. You have Whitesville Road that runs, the north is to the top, so Whitesville Road runs north-south, and you have the T intersection with 528 East Veterans Highway on the top, which is a signalized intersection. The property to our west, this forested area is all freshwater wetlands. There's an unnamed tributary to the Tums River, which crosses the road here. There's actually a large culvert there. I actually did the work for the county, the engineering work and the permitting to reconstruct that culvert, which was done fairly recently. And the county has also acquired the property to the west of us. So, as noted by your professionals, we are proposing to subdivide it off the tip of the triangle, so to speak, that wooded portion. It is environmentally constrained. It cannot be developed, but there is the opportunity to include it with public ownership that already exists to our west. And it already has a large culvert from the county on it. Yes, there's an easement for it, but that's the, to be honest, it does place us in the category of 1 to 2 acre for the house of worship. I won't lie, that was part of the strategy. I'm here to be honest with the board, as I always am. But that doesn't change the facts of the project. This project was designed and approved by the zoning board under the 2 acre criteria. So, in my opinion, working on the project under the old and the new ordinances, it's irrelevant. The project stays the way it is. It's a modestly sized house of worship that's appropriate for the property. And I think personally, not that it matters, but the ordinance that was adopted and certified in 2023 to provide the categories of 1 to 2 versus greater than 2 is appropriate, and this project is an example of that, because yes, it's 2.4 acres, but more than 0.4 acres is environmentally constrained. So,
And if I might add, the Pinelands, in their review letter, requires the applicant to deed restrict that small lot as conserved space. That's what they'd like us to do with it.
right.
So would this end up, at this point, if the county doesn't absorb it, it's Jackson's property, right?
No, nobody said Jackson would own it, it would just be deed restricted from any development. Ownership would remain in private hands, and I don't see any circumstance here where Jackson Township would be imposed any burden whatsoever. That is not our intent, that's not, I don't see any path towards that. That's not what's intended.
All right, so no one can build on it.
The
no
only
one
burden
can
that
use
rests
it,
is the maintenance of that culvert, but there's already an easement for that. So,
and
that's the county,
county's.
and that's the county.
county's.
Which is why the county owning the open space behind us, I'm drawing a complete blank on the name of that farm. They were actually a client of mine. But anyway, they own that property now.
And there's nothing on there now. I was out there the other day, and it's difficult to see but there are some buildings on that property now.
There's a house, right on the left side, there's a house and a garage out in front. I actually tried to subdivide it for his daughter. We tried to build a house here, but we were Pinelands and the wetland rules, we could not do it. So that was probably 20 years ago.
Okay.
Fun fact, Calendula Court, I did that subdivision too. Calendula is the dog of one of my beloved yellow labs. So you can tell all your friends that,
Yeah, okay.
I think
now
we
I
are
know.
quite digressing
I did
from
wonder.
the application.
I did wonder. Mr. Klee, what's your advice here?
I would say probably not. The county has to approve the project, but the only negative effect of the subdivision is that we do require a single lot depth variance for that new lot, which it's not a developable lot. You'll hear my planning testimony. I see no negative impact from a single lot depth variance on a property that will never be developed upon. The lot depth variance that we require for the house of worship remains, whether it actually gets worsened. If we don't subdivide, then the lot depth that we require for the house of worship actually gets increased. Because now we move the center point of the lot closer to the intersection towards the acute end of the triangle. So one could argue, and mathematically it's an argument, that the subdivision actually lessens the variance relief for the house of worship as well. Yeah, but we meet the coverage. We meet the coverage for the 1 to 2 acre category. We met it for the greater than 2 acre.
Dr. Campbell?
It's an unusually shaped property that
It is.
fits within both categories of
We've got all
house of
kinds of
worship.
unusually shaped properties in Jackson, in case you
Yes.
haven't noticed.
This is a
Mr.
question for Mr. Peters, maybe. I think you were involved with the drafting of the ordinance to 1 to 2 acres. Could we just explain for the board why there was a difference when we drafted the ordinance from the 1 to 2 and then 2 and above?
Well, the short answer is there's not a public history. There's a planning idea that in certain areas of town, there would be different lot sizes available, and different design standards would yield different intensities of development. In this particular case, while I don't take any exception to the request for the subdivision, it is obvious that there are different design standards if you're over or under 2 acres. Mr. Borden has given testimony, he's done just about everything except give us a sketch that says, here's what the 2 acres are, and this is the reason we're not doing it. If the board accepts that, fine. Going back to either Mr. Klee or Mr. Shea's comment about what about the sort of useless or throwaway lot, I think we'd be happier if it was given to a public entity as opposed to having someone own it. If someone's going to own something that can't be developed, A, they have to pay taxes on it, B, they have to be responsible for maintenance on it. They don't want to do either because it's not a developable lot. The residents of Jackson Township, as Mr. Clea had indicated, probably end up footing the bill for part of it. So to the extent that someone's going to own an undevelopable lot that's severely constrained by wetlands, there might be a better plan out there than that. But as it relates to providing houses of worship and accessory structures, I think it was the intent that based upon the size and configuration of lots, that you would get sort of the same yield across that spectrum of lots. But at 2 acres, you're going to need additional things: parking, stormwater management, those sorts of things. So it got out of just the planning realm, got into the engineering realm, so to speak. The only other comment I've heard so far that I might not agree with 100% was Mr. Borden's comment about it doesn't matter if we were here at the zoning board. If they wanted, they could have went to the zoning board and applied for a site plan. But quite frankly, that was a tortured history with the zoning board with this application. I'm not unhappy that they're here before the planning board with a conforming application. I think the board just needs to weigh the variance relief that's being requested. At the end of the day, I don't know that we'll call it the yield of the site would be significantly different whether they applied the 1 or 2 acre standards. And I think Mr. Borden started to talk about that, but perhaps if the board's looking for something more to hang their hat on, so to speak, I think it's what can we do with the leftover piece of property so that it doesn't become a nuisance? And sort of an explanation of, again, Mr. Borden and Ms. Jennings were not unaware of the ordinance changes. How does this fit into the intent of the revised zone that they're utilizing?
Is that clear to everybody? All right, so we have to think of two different scenarios here, right? One would be if we allow the subdivision, and the other would be the building as it stands, and we don't. So perhaps it would be best if we went ahead and listened to the testimony about the building itself and any variances that may be necessary.
And just so the board is clear, deed, we don't see it a lot, or at least we haven't seen it a lot in the last couple of years, but that's a very, very common thing. People deed restrict their properties for all reasons, all the time. Some of it's to make sure it's not developable. So this is kind of a nuanced new thing for us, for seeing this. I don't think we've come across this in the last couple of years. But this happens I do this all the time in my private practice. I mean, I write deeds myself sometimes with restrictions inside of them. So this is kind of a common thing. So don't take this out of context that this is kind of unusual. It's really not.
Okay,
So that's it. That's my 2 cents.
okay, great. All right, let's continue then.
Sure. So if you could, Mr. Borden, why don't you go through the background on the site and what we're proposing here?
Certainly, thank you. So as I said, the property is 2.44 acres. The property is located within the regional growth zone of Pinelands. The board members, I'm sure, are very familiar with that. It's the highest intensity development section of the Pinelands National Reserve as regulated by the Pinelands Comprehensive Management Plan. All the surrounding lots are zoned RG2. The East Veterans Highway is the boundary of Pinelands. Everything from the Exhibit A1 to the south or to the bottom are all zoned RG2. The area above is not in Pinelands and is zoned R1. The property is currently occupied by an existing home and a separate building. You can see the home where I'm aimed at A1, and then below that is another building. You see grass. There's a small parking area. My office has worked on this property for more than 20 years for various owners. This property was a house with, again, a separate structure, a garage or barn. It was originally granted a variance by the zoning board to do a canoe rental. They used to have Pinelands canoes there. Then my office got involved years later, and we did a variance and a site plan for a pet resort. It was a canine pet resort. Then my current client and the owner approached me about doing a house of worship on this project, I'm going to guess about 4 or 5 years ago. And as Ms. Jennings said, we did obtain a D3 variance from the zoning board for the same house of worship, basically the same site plan that you're going to see as we go through the plans. The reason it was a D3 variance required because under the old ordinance, houses of worship were a conditional use, and the conditional use required, for example, the lot depth. You know, the requirements are the same. One of the questions, and let me just touch on this, one of the questions was how would this site be different if it's under the 1 to 2 acre, on the greater than 2 acre, old criteria, or even current criteria. And the lot width and depth requirements were the same. It had a lot width of 250 feet and a lot depth of 400 feet. So given the odd shape of the property and the triangular nature, the acute triangular nature, the lot variance, the depth variance is there regardless. So that was the primary reason that we were in front of
I'm
the-
sorry, Mr. Gordon, I didn't hear what you just said. I apologize.
I'm sorry. I'm probably talking too fast, and I apologize. The project does not comply with the lot depth variance either under the old, because this ordinance was just adopted in 2023, and as I said, we've been working on it since 2020 or 2021. So in the case of lot dimensional requirements, the 1 to 2 acre category that's in the new ordinance versus the greater than 2 acre in the old ordinance are very similar. In fact, they're the same dimensional requirements, and a variance was required from both, except back then, there wasn't, it required a D3 variance because it was a conditional use requirement. Now they are just simply listed in the permitted use section of the ordinance, so any such variance relief for a dimension of a lot like that can be granted by this board. And I think also, I think it's important to put in context is that we're always striving, opinions out in the world notwithstanding, I'm talking about the development community and people in our profession, we're always striving to make things conforming and to bring them to the planning board. You know, we don't want to board shop and go to the zoning board. That's not what ethically and professionally what we try to do. We try to design conforming things to bring them here. Obviously, in this case, though, we had the dimensions of the lot are unique and extraordinary. You'll hear my testimony, you get about a C1 variance, extraordinary shape of the property, et cetera. Certainly this fit into that category, but because it was a conditional use, that required a D3 variance. And as Ms. Jennings said, the township then subsequently modified the ordinance in 2023 to add that category of house of worship of 1 to 2 acres, and thereby we're here today. So we have designed this, as I said in my initial statement, considered of ordinance 30-23. That does include the minor subdivision. If you don't mind going to Exhibit A2, please, Anthony. We have the minor subdivision that we have submitted as our Exhibit A2. Would have been nice if I'd taken the time to highlight it, but I apparently did not. The proposed lot line is where my pen, my marker is. In this case, Whitesville Road is left to right. Veterans is off the page to the right or right here. So here you have the existing house, existing garage, the parking, all done for the canoe rental and the pet resort. And then here's the head wall that I was making mention of right there and the various easements for it. So that's the lot. So we are proposing to make it lot 21.01, which is 1.79 acres, which is a subject to the site plan, and then 21.02, which contains 0.65 acres. Again, no development is proposed on 21.02. Both lots conform to the ordinance requirements. The ordinance requires a lot to be at greater than 10,000 square feet. And we comply with all the dimensional requirements. The minimum width and depth is 100 feet, but the minimum depth or the actual depth of proposed lot 21.02 is 86 feet. So that is the one variance that we, and a C1 variance that I would consider it, that we require for the subdivision. That is an 86-foot lot depth where 100 feet is required for proposed lot 21.02. Well, that comes in the site plan. I'm talking about the subdivision. Just the subdivision, there's that singular variance. Now we move into the site plan, and if you go to A3, please, Anthony. We have the proposal is to, here you see the lot line bit here. There's no development proposed on lot 21.02, and here we have our proposed house of worship. We are demolishing all of the existing site improvements, the house, the garage, the parking. Actually, let me skip over something in my notes I want to step back and go over. I had mentioned in my initial talk here that on the A1, that forested area is wetlands, and that's shown here. And you can see the wetland line on A3, and the buffers extend onto the property. These wetlands and buffers have been established by the Pinelands Commission. The Pinelands Commission has jurisdiction over wetlands within Pinelands. DEP has no jurisdiction over wetlands when you're in the Pinelands National Reserve. So having the Pinelands verify the wetlands and wetlands buffer limits is a necessary part of the procedure going through the certificate of filing. My office did that basically 20 years ago through these various applications with the pet resort, and then of course moving into the house of worship. We do have a certificate, the latest certificate of filing is dated October 26, 2023, and that verifies the limits of wetlands and buffer. In fact, the wetland buffers on the property have been deed restricted already as part of the earlier applications. When we did the canine pet resort, we were required to deed restrict those wetland buffers, and that remains. So this project respects those filed conservation easements.
This is a heavily encumbered piece of property.
It's a heavily encumbered piece. Thank you. No, that's very well said. Yes. It's a heavily encumbered piece of property. Unusual shape with heavy encumbrances.
It makes sense.
I just want to make a note, it was listed in the planner's letter. It was asking us to testify about the conservation overlay zone. The conservation overlay zone does not apply in the Pinelands. If you read the zoning map, it actually has a notation that says does not apply, and that's because the Pinelands Commission has never certified that aspect of the land use plan. As I mentioned, they have no jurisdiction over freshwater wetlands, so that just simply doesn't apply. But we do have proof that we do accurately show the wetlands and wetland buffers by virtue of the certificate of filing that was issued and submitted to the board. So what we are trying to do is now build the house of worship under the requirements in the ordinance, the new standards under 244-90F. I'll briefly go through them. There's a number of them. There's three that apply to every house of worship regardless of the lot size, and then there are a separate category that applies to those that are between 1 and 2 acres. So the first of the three that apply to any house of worship are that the lot shall not have frontage on a residential access or residential neighborhood street. We obviously have access to Whitesville Road, which is a county arterial road. So we meet number one, which is the access type of the road that we're using. Number two is that the required minimum lot area shall be the same as required in 244-90. 244-90 is the RG2 zone requirements, particularly C, and the minimum lot area under that is 1 acre. Thereby, the ordinance says you have to have at least 1 acre to have a house of worship, and our proposed lot has 1.79 acres. So we comply with that. Number three is the maximum height of the building of any principal structure shall be 35 feet. The proposed house of worship has a height to the top of the flat roof of 28 feet, where 38 feet is required. There is a variance that we require for a projection. This is unusual. I don't recall ever testifying about this to this board, but it is a part of the ordinance. It's not part of the zone requirements. There's a separate part of the ordinance under 244-156B that applies to, and I'll read from the ordinance, spires, belfries, cupolas, or domes not used for human occupancy, or to parapets, walls, or cornices extending not more than 4 feet above the building height limit. I'm sure the board has heard testimony many times. I've given testimony that on a flat roof you have a parapet. The maximum height of that parapet or any other decorative feature, I would call it, is 4 feet. In this case, there is a dome on top of the house of worship that exceeds the 4-foot height. It actually extends 14 feet above the flat roof, and there, if, maybe just jump to the architect to provide some more testimony on this, but just to give you some introduction. If you don't mind, Anthony, go to the next one. The dome actually extends 14 feet above the flat roof. Well, that came out small, didn't it? Why did it do that? I feel bad for the poor architectural. Why does the file do that? Yeah, there you go. No, we got Anthony. He's got the, so there you see the dome. You see the small area of the roof that it occupies. And that dome extends 14 feet above the flat roof. So we actually require a variance from not from the zoning ordinance, but from 244-156B, which is that, in my opinion, the height of the permitted top of dome height is 39 feet, because you have a 35-foot maximum permitted height plus 4 feet. So it'll be 39 feet. 14 plus 28 is 42. So we're proposing a dome height of 42 feet, where 39 feet is the maximum permitted dome height.
Did the fire department have anything to say about that?
The fire commissioners did review the project. I fortunately didn't bring a copy with me, but I believe they approved the project, understanding that the dome is not for human occupancy.
Right, it's beautiful.
I mean, that's the definition of that section. So it's just the decorative feature, as I understand it. So those are the 3 items that apply to all houses of worship and all categories, whether it's 1 to 2 acres or greater than 2 acres. Now we get into the subset of the requirements as they apply to lots between 1 and 2 acres. And I'll go through them fairly quickly. You have the minimum lot width and depth that I'd mentioned is 250 and 400. We provide 323 feet of lot frontage with the proposed lot 21.01. We have 243 feet of lot depth. So that is the second variance you require, then the first for the house of worship. So that is a C1 variance that we're requesting for the, and again, that variance would be exacerbated if we eliminate the subdivision. It would slide the lot depth line closer to the acute end of the property and make the depth even less. The minimum front yard is 60 feet. We provide 62 feet. That's measured to Whitesville Road. The minimum side yard is 20 feet. That will be from the, if you can go back to Anthony to A3, that will be from the left side or the south side. We have 45 feet. And the minimum rear yard to the back here is 50 feet, and we provide 93 feet. So the house of worship building complies with all the setback requirements. The maximum building coverage is the maximum permitted in the zone, which is opined in the planner's letter, 40%. We agree with that. So we're permitted 40% of building coverage. We are proposing 21%. So I think it's important to note that even though we're making the property smaller with the subdivision, we're still half of the permitted building coverage. So we're not overbuilding. We're not, it's, the maximum lot coverage is 70% of the gross lot area. We're at 60%. Again, we are significantly under the maximum impervious coverage, even though we've made the lot smaller by the subdivision. The parking is required to be set back at least 15 feet from the public street right-of-way, which will be Whitesville Road in our case, and shall be screened from the adjacent right-of-way with a hedgerow. We are proposing a 15-foot front setback, so we comply with and we have a hedge planting along the front. I take credit for that part of the ordinance too, because I said, it's important when we do parking areas to put a landscaping of a hedge type to block headlights. I think you've heard that from us before as well. The applicant shall submit a list of proposed activities and anticipated participants and the hours. We did submit a statement of operation with the application. The parking area, circulation drive, and/or accessory structure setback to any side or rear property line adjacent to a residentially zoned property shall be 10 feet. This applies to two things on the property. One is we have an access drive on the south side of the building, kind of an emergency access, primarily that goes around the house of worship. That is set back 10 feet from the property to our south. In addition, we have the mikveh accessory building in the back corner. That setback is 10 feet from the sideline and 47 feet to the rear line. So we meet the 10 feet on the side, and we're 47 where 10 is required on the rear. So we meet all the setbacks of parking. Next one is not applicable. It's parking area and circulations to commercial property shall be 3 feet. That doesn't apply. We have no commercially zoned properties adjacent to us. And the last item is that a decorative 6-foot fence and/or natural vegetative buffer of a minimum width of 5 feet shall be provided along all parking, circulation, and structures adjacent to residential zones where properties improve with residential uses. That only applies to our south property here. And we do have on the landscape plan, we do have a vegetative planting of mixture of trees and shrubs along that property line. As I noted, to our west is forest and wetlands, owned by the county now. So we comply with that. And lastly, just want to mention that the mikveh is permitted as an accessory use to the house of worship with two criteria. One is that the maximum floor area is 2,000 square feet. We're proposing 1,157, so we're basically slightly more than half of what we're permitted. And the next one is a statement that the religious bathing facilities shall not have any additional parking requirement beyond that of the house of worship. So that's more of a statement guiding us on how to design our parking. In the statement of operation, you'll see that religious services each day in the house of worship, 7 days per week, starting at 7:30 a.m. More to be held on holidays. There's a list of activities in the statement of operations that are not proposed. Speaking now, talking to the site quickly, we have 55 parking spaces are required as determined by the planner's review. We provide 67 parking spaces. We provide 66 physical spaces and 2 EV-ready spaces, which is when you have between 50 and 75 parking spaces, you're required to have 2 EV-ready spaces. We do comply with that. But those 2 spaces give us a credit of 1, that 2-to-1 credit. So we have 66 physical spaces, 1 EV-ready credit space for a total of 67, where 55 are required. We do propose a single 2-way drive to Whitesville Road. Mr. Ray will give testimony on that. We have submitted to the County Planning Board. They have no issues with the project. We're just doing standard road widening along our frontage per the master plan, which is typical for all projects above a county road. There were a couple of items noted in the planner's review on the parking standards, specifically referenced in section 244-197, and that is a section of the ordinance that refers to large parking areas. The large parking area is defined as greater than 50 spaces. So because we have 67 spaces, we fall into the large category. And what those are, and those are what I would call enhanced standards above and beyond a normal parking lot, considered the amount of traffic that a larger parking area would see. And primarily what those items are is they want a throat of driveway from the road for an entrance and exit. So when you pull into a parking lot from a roadway, they want there to be 100 feet before you can pull into a parking space or pull down a drive aisle. And for exiting, they want a minimum of 60 feet, similarly. We have 33 feet for the entrance and 40 feet for the exit. Additionally, that same ordinance section states that a major circulation drive should not be utilized by parking stalls. We do have in the back, the main parking drive is here. We have no parking from the road all the way through the house of worship. We have this loop drive aisle with all the parking spaces off of it. We do have 2 parking spaces in the very back of the house of worship, 1 handicap space and 1 regular space, simply for convenience of use, primarily for the mikveh. Technically, those are on the major circulation aisle, although really the major circulation aisle, in my opinion, is limited to what the front parking bay area. In the back there, as I mentioned, is more of an emergency access. But it was called out, and we would request that waiver as well. And then lastly, landscape islands are required to be 10 feet in width. We have 2 islands in the main parking bay, 1 here and 1 there, that are 8 foot in width. I know that's a small difference. Why don't just make them 10 feet? But we're dealing with, as the board members can appreciate, spatial constraints from the shape of the property, the existing wetland buffer and wetlands. And so we do ask for that small waiver of 2 feet on those 2 each, on those 2 islands. In my opinion, design waiver is applicable here because it would be impractical to comply given the spatial constraints and environmental constraints of the property. And I think it's also important, and maybe John can speak to this if he agrees with what I'm about to say, and that is that in my opinion, that large parking area standards is written for a shopping center. I think they have a lot more turnover of vehicles than a house of worship. We have this conversation when we're dealing with, again, large shopping centers. Typically more than 20,000 square feet is where you generate that amount of parking with varied commercial uses. We do not have that situation here. Curb and sidewalk is proposed along Whitesville Road across the frontage of lot 21.01. We do not, was raised in the letters about we do not propose the sidewalk and curb along 21.02, and that's not because of the subdivision, that's just simply a concern about the environmental constraints. We are happy if the board, obviously the board can direct us to put in curb and sidewalk, and I'm happy to go to Pine Lanes and try to get that done. I just don't know that they will accept the sidewalk. We understand the need for good pedestrian access. Nobody cares about that more than my client and I, but given the environmental constraints, we're just not sure that we can actually accomplish that. But we'd like to, if the board feels that it's necessary, we'll take a shot with them on that. We will propose a ground sign. I believe there was something that was missing from our plans. We would like to propose a ground sign at the site entrance. That would be a conforming ground sign of a maximum height of 6 feet, signage area 32 square feet, simply with the name of the congregation. I think it's important to have an identity, as well as facade signage on the building will comply with the ordinance. The project will be serviced by public water and sewer. There is public water in Whitesville Road currently across the site frontage. There is sewer just to our south with the new subdivision being built called Blanky Court, or the Hunter subdivision. This board had approved that many years ago. We understand that there are capacity. The site is located within a central sewer service area, so public sewer is permitted in the regional growth zone and encouraged, in fact. We do understand that there's capacity limitations with the Jackson Emmy Way and the downstream sewer into Toms River. My office is actually working to hopefully solve that problem for everybody's benefit, but it is our intent to provide public sewer for this project. And lastly, just as a housekeeping, obviously, I think it's obvious, but the property owner will be responsible for all the operation and maintenance of the site plan, parking area, landscaping, utilities, lighting. Refuse collection is by private carrier. We do have a refuse enclosure that meets the ordinance as far as size, shape, landscaping, and it does have separate areas for storage of refuse and recyclables as well. So other than some planning testimony on those 3 variances, we have the lot depth of 2102 proposed lot for the subdivision, 86 feet where 100 feet is required. And the lot depth for the house of worship, 243 where 400 is required. In my opinion, that would be a C1 variance of the exceptional shape of the existing piece of property. As I mentioned, Even if the subdivision was not proposed, that would simply mean that the lot depth variance for the site plan would be exacerbated. It would be less than 243 feet proposed. And then lastly was the height of the decorative dome, where we're permitted requesting a maximum height of 42 feet, where 39 feet is permitted. And that is a decorative feature that the architect can explain in further detail. But I think that's mitigated in part because certainly from the perspective of light, air, and open space, the proposed building that we're proposing, our proposed building, is substantially less than the maximum permitted height of 35 feet. Yes, the dome is higher, but the building itself is 7 feet below the maximum building height.
And would it be your testimony that the dome height is an aesthetic improvement?
Yes.
So it would be under the C2 flexible criteria?
I certainly, certainly we can do that as well. Certainly the grant of the variance would meet the benefits versus detriments under the C2 because the benefits granting the variance does not create any detriment to the zone plan or master plan.
And did you address all the issues raised in the board's consultants' reports?
I tried to address the ones I thought would be relevant in testimony. Certainly any of their technical comments we agree to comply with. We have no objection to any of the comments, any of the reviews.
Yes, the street sign, could we also have the address put on the street sign?
Of course, it's required, yes.
Excellent.
Regarding the dome, first of all, I'm not sure you see down the road by the state forest, they're building something like 100 feet, so this little few feet of dome. And it's aesthetic. By the new state forest, the nursery, I'm not sure if that's really for this application, but it's a fire tower? I was wondering what that was. So this little dome is, and it's beautiful, so can you elaborate back on what we spoke about at the beginning of the meeting regarding dedicating to the county? I concur with Mr. Klee and Mr. Peters about that. So if they do not want to observe that, I was a bit unclear on what ends up happening if the county does not want to observe that.
Well,
I do see they have a drainage easement there, right? Running through the middle, which is already currently dedicated?
Yes. Yes, lot 2102, in my opinion, will either be owned by the applicant in perpetuity with a deed restriction it's already deed restricted under the current easements that he can't be developed, or it would be deeded to the county to be consolidated with the existing county property located behind us.
So if it stays with the applicant, applicant will be responsible to maintain that property?
Yes.
Correct? Got it. Thank you.
Mr. Trummer?
I appreciate what you're saying about the sidewalk, so if you could try that, I think it'd be a good idea.
That's fine.
Let them shoot it down instead of us.
I agree.
Just clarifying, in the drawings, you have 360 degrees of driving around the building.
Correct.
Okay, because the picture, you have a nice front lawn in it, but I was just making sure.
Yes.
Which, thank you, appreciate
Yeah,
it.
that actually, that rendering, that aerial rendering in A4
Yeah.
predated us adding the driveway.
Yeah, no, I was looking at
Back then, we actually, it looks like grass, but it was a grass street. But then we made it a pavement, so, yes, it is 360 paved driveway.
So has the fire official looked at the updated version
Yes.
of this? And he had no problem with the
No.
dome? Okay. Did he give you any type of written clearance on that?
Yeah, I just didn't bring a copy with me, but that'll be provided to the board.
But-
We can't go forward without it, we know that.
Right, so you did your job.
Yes.
My only concern, and I had this with another application, which is very concerning, pulling out of this parking lot. It's a double yellow line there, and it's a deceleration area up to the signal. Is it going to be strictly only right turns, or are we going to be making left turns out?
No, it's a full turn driveway.
Say again?
It's a full turn driveway, there'll be left turns out of
But
this
it's a double
driveway.
yellow line.
I understand, but the yellow line's is for passing. Mr. Ray can address that in his traffic
I
testimony.
have a very big issue with Mr. Ray and his statement the last time with that, and I've checked with Jackson PD, and neighbors can make turns in and out of the driveway, it's called a courtesy. But this is a major parking lot at certain times, and the double yellow line, while yes, it is for passing suggestions, it's also an imaginary divider, which you're not supposed to be making left turns over. I mean, maybe the county can put a broken line there or something like that, I don't know. But I have a very big issue with that.
Okay.
And I think that's a problem, especially, I mean, we know the area we're talking about. Everybody's coming up to the light, or they've just turned from the light and they're flying down that road. It's a dangerous situation, like the other application. So that I'm very concerned about. I don't think that there should be left turns going out of there unless we have some sort of legal break.
Sure.
Because you turn out over double yellow line, you're at fault.
I understand. Mr. Ray will address that in his traffic testimony.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else with questions on the board?
As far as the statement of operations go, you only say that it's open at 7:30 a.m. When does it, what are the hours? The end hours?
I don't know. I don't know what the closing time is, if that's what your question is.
Yes, that is what my question is.
Okay, let me, thank you, Ms. Jennings. She helped me out here. The, under weekdays, the evening services, or the evening lecture ends by no later than 9:30 p.m. There's an evening services, which occurs during sundown. And then the evening lecture will end by 9:30 p.m. on weekdays. Under Sabbath and the holidays, they end an hour after sundown.
And you indicate here that there will be no weddings. Are there going to be bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs? I know I saw something about a social hall, I think.
I don't know the answer to that question.
Is there anyone that could answer
Yes.
that?
Yeah, the applicant representative is here, so we can bring him up.
Okay, that'd be great. And
I
I'm
have
just
Zach.
curious, because, you know, you're asking for some variances, and you've indicated that the lot is unique, extraordinary, exceptional. Was there any thought of trying to put in a house of worship that didn't need any variances at all, including a height variance of 42 feet?
Well, the two variants, the lot depth variances exist no matter what size of the house of worship is. I mean, that's irrelevant. It's irrelevant to the size of what we're proposing. Is
An existing condition,
Right.
so right now it violates the lot depth
right,
as it is configured.
without any development on it.
And the dome is just an aesthetic, it just looks really nice, and that's what they'd like to put on top of the
Right.
roof.
And the architect can address why the height of the dome is 14 feet. I think that's a relevant question, but that's the only variance related to the use.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Okay, at this time, then I'd bring up Mr. Ray.
Long time no see.
Yes,
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, please state your name and spell your last on the record.
John Ray, REA, professional engineer with McDonough and Ray Associates, 1431 Lakewood Road, Manasquan, New Jersey.
Board acceptance qualifications?
Yes, we do.
Thank you. Mr. Ray, just for the record, your office prepared a traffic impact analysis dated June 25th, 2024?
We also updated it December 1st, 2023, and the reason is we were originally involved in the zoning board case, which, as Ms. Jennings indicated, resulted in an approval from the zoning board for the house of worship and the mikveh, but now we're in front of the planning board, so we updated it to address it to the planning board
Okay, so you've obviously visited the site and the area around the site?
many, many times.
And if you could just-
Not only for this project, for other projects in the area.
Yes, I'm sure. And if you could just describe the existing conditions and, address some of the board members' concerns. that
Sure.
You've heard, I'm sure you've been sitting in the audience listening.
Well, the subject property is located on the west side of Whitesville Road, which is County Route 527. It is just south of the signalized intersection at Whitesville Road and East Veterans Highway, and a little bit further north and offset from Calendula Court, approximately 250 feet, center line to center line is the offset of the two driveways. We did a full traffic impact study for the project. We projected traffic volumes to a design year of 2033 in accordance with the Ocean County Planning Board protocol. We included traffic from other projects in the area, and quite frankly, we're familiar with 9 other projects within several miles of this site. We included that traffic in our 2033 projections. We did level of service analyses for the site driveway to Whitesville Road, and under a worst-case scenario, one in which all 66 parking space, or 67, I guess it is now. I think I saw a plan with 66. But if all of the parking spaces are occupied by vehicles and they're discharged onto Whitesville Road during a peak hour, we will still have, under that worst-case scenario, we'll have a level of service C for the morning peak hour, level of service D for the afternoon peak hour. Those are acceptable levels of service. We also looked at the off-site intersection, the signal at Whitesville and East Veterans, and that intersection has plenty of capacity. That will also operate at level of service C for both the morning and afternoon peak hours for the design year. I understand that we do have adequate parking, I believe, as per the Jackson Township ordinance. I can back up what Mr. Borden said with respect to the relief we need for the depth of the access aisle before it intersects a cross aisle in the parking lot. This will be a house of worship that will be utilized by congregants who are familiar with the site. I do believe those requirements were basically put in for large commercial properties, shopping centers, things of that nature. And I understand the need for them in a case like that, but not in a case like this where we have a relatively small parking lot, 66 spaces, and the congregants will be familiar with the circulation. We do have full circulation around the building, although it may not be shown on this site plan. We do have full circulation around the building. The fire department wanted that. We gave it to them. And let's see, what else? Oh, I'll try to address the double yellow line. There seems to be a common misconception, even among police officers, and I don't want to get into a debate about that, but you can't cross a double yellow line, make a left turn. We have a letter from the DOT indicating that you can do that. I don't know where this came from, but I'm trying to address it as best as I can without being confrontational. But what we can do to make it better for the congregants, we can ask the county to break the crosshatching in the vicinity of the driveway so that it's clear to the congregants entering and exiting that they're allowed to do it. We can break the crosshatching there. The county will allow us to do that. So I hope that addresses your concern. Thank you. I understand.
If somebody pulls out and there's a major incident, it's on you. So
We don't want that to happen. We'll ask the county to break the crosshatching.
And I've asked from several jurisdictions, state troopers, local police, and many others, and they all disagree with you.
And again, not to be argumentative or anything, I'm not aware of anybody that's ever gotten a ticket for making a left turn across a yellow line. It's just, we have a letter from DOT. It's not part of the motor vehicle and traffic laws. And I'm not an expert in the law. I'm just an engineer, but this is my understanding. But I'm not to be argumentative, we're going to do what you suggested. We're going to ask for a break in the crosshatching. It's not a bad idea, and we will go to the county and ask them for that.
I believe it covers both ends.
Okay.
Covers us, covers you.
Thank you.
I'd ask one question of our professionals. I know this is a major road, and theoretically, there's no parking, but would it be wise to put no parking signs there? Is there something, an ordinance on parking on the street there?
As long as we're permitted by, I guess, the township or the county. I don't know if we would need authority from somebody to do that.
I'd appreciate that.
Dr.
Yeah,
Campbell.
we would agree to do that, definitely. We don't want people parking out on Whitesville Road.
Absolutely.
Dr. Campbell, could I just clarify, quickly, would that be under the town council or the county
I think the town council has to pass an ordinance, if I'm not mistaken. And the county will approve it. Whatever the town wants, the county will go along with it.
Okay, because we just had this come up with another application recently. Just wanted to clarify who's responsible for this.
I think, from what I gather, it's the town makes the request of the county, because it's a county road. But the town makes the request, and the county will approve it, hopefully.
Right, and so we can just make the request to the township, and hopefully they'll make the request to the county.
That sounds about right. So we'll make it a condition of approval for you guys to.
For them to request it from us, for us to request from the county.
Correct. Yeah.
Got it.
Correct. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Ray? Any questions?
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to call up our architect.
Good evening.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, please state your name and spell your last for the record.
Sure. I'm Melissa Rubb, R-U-B. I am a licensed architect and project manager at BF Design in Lakewood, New Jersey. I've had the pleasure to appear before this and many other boards throughout the state. Same here. Thank you for having me.
And if you could, Ms. Reb, just go through your elevation and floor plans for the benefit of the board, and if you could also make sure you address the question raised by Board Member DeMarzo regarding the height of the dome.
Absolutely. Anthony, if you don't mind, we'll start with the House of Worship. This is the zoning set for the mikveh building. So if I can trouble you to go to the other Z1 page that was submitted. There were 2 packets, I believe. Oh, it might be in the same, yeah. Well, no, this is only a 2-page set, it looks like. Was there another packet? Thank you so much. Yes, perfect. Thank you very much. Great. Let's actually move over to the next page, Z2. That's the floor plans. So the proposed house of worship is a 2-story structure with a full basement, measuring approximately 67 feet wide and 105 feet deep. As Mr. Borden mentioned in his testimony, the height to the main roof is 31 feet and 42 to the top of the dome, which we'll get into a little bit later. The main entrance of the building is located on the west facade. You can see that in the bottom left floor plan over here, leading into a vestibule and central lobby. To the left of the vestibule is the coat room, coffee room, and restrooms, and to the right is a library. The main sanctuary, totaling 1,943 square feet, lies straight ahead, with a rabbi study and small lecture room located behind it. Moving up to the second floor, which is the top right-hand corner of the page, we have a 1,321 square foot women's balcony looking over the sanctuary, accompanied by a small coffee station, restrooms, and other ancillary spaces. At the basement level, which is the top left-hand corner of the sheet, we have a 3,143 square foot social hall with areaways at the basement level on either side, as well as other supporting spaces, including a lobby, bathrooms, utility room, and food prep area. If we could move now to page Z3, please. So this is 2 of the 4 elevations. Maybe the rendering is a little bit clearer to see the full building. That was part of the exhibit package, A4 in the exhibit package. That was the first packet. Sorry, the first tab, the 26 Whitesville Road exhibit packet. Yeah, thank you so much. The last page. So just for the record, this is exhibit A4 and is a architectural colored rendering of the site. Thank you so much, Anthony. Thank you. So the elevation showcases an elegant building with classical influences. The exterior is a light tone stucco facade with tall arched windows and columns, a detailed cornice. The main entrance is again located facing west and the arc wall facing east that add further texture and interest to the building. And Lastly, as we discussed, there's the sanctuary is topped by a ribbed dome with integrated clerestory windows, and this is where the height piece of it comes in. So as you can see, this is the main roof level, and in order to allow the dome to have a function in that it lets light into the main sanctuary, we've added windows around the dome, and that increases the height. Now, with the proportion of how wide the dome is, the end result is that from the roof surface, which is this area, to the top of the ribbed dome, ends up being 14 feet. I'm sorry to make you flip back and forth, Anthony, but if we can go back to the architectural, yeah. You can see that from a flat view, this part of this 14 feet is blocked by the main parapet of the building. So again, from a person standing at grade or a car driving nearby, the 14 feet doesn't read 14 feet, but just as a matter of, on the record, it ends up being 42 to the top of that ribbed dome. Next, we'll move on to the ancillary mikveh building. So that's that first packet that you had. This is a single-story structure measuring approximately 27 feet deep by 42 feet wide. The height of this building is 14 feet to the top of the parapet. The building consists of 3 distinct mikvaos, or pools, each with its own entrance. Sorry? Oh, no, sorry. Thanks. Yeah, let's go to the middle tab, that mikvah architectural plan. Perfect. Yeah, these are the elevations. If you scroll up one sheet, we'll get to the floor plan. Yeah, perfect. So each of the functions of the building have its own entrance. This is the women's entrance, men's entrance, and the vessel mikvah, or the kela mikvah, as put on the plan. Architecturally, again, from an elevation standpoint, the mikvah building reflects the language of the main house of worship, incorporating stucco and clad with pilasters and corbel details, just to give the building a little bit of rhythm and architectural cohesion with the main building, which is the house of worship. That concludes my direct testimony, Donna. You have anything else?
Nope, but thank you.
Great.
Hi. Just confirming, the rabbi study, is that an emergency egress out there from the main sanctuary, or are you just using the rear for the building for that?
That's a great question. So the rabbi does have his own entrance. I'm just going to take a quick peek. The main sanctuary actually has a secondary exit out of the library room. So conforming with building code, it's 1/3 of the room diagonal, and that should be fine. So the intention is that secondary room be the second means of egress out of the...
So no access to the rabbi's office, hey?
That's correct. Sure. Thank you very much.
At this time, I'll just call up the applicant's representative, Mordecai Hirsch, so he could address any specific questions regarding the operations of the facility, and in particular, questions by Board Member DeMarc. So,
All right. You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, please state your name and spell your last for the record.
Mordecai Hirsch, Hirsch.
and if you could, just for the record, how are you affiliated with the applicant?
I'm the rabbi and the applicant.
And I know that there was a specific question whether or not, what kind of activities would be happening at the shul and the mikveh, other than services, if any?
So the primary activity is services, as Mr. Borden already detailed. I think the question was if there would be bar or bat mitzvahs hosted, and I would answer in the affirmative, but those are predominantly affiliated with the services, so it wouldn't attract more guests or vehicular traffic. In other words, when there's a service in the sanctuary, those congregants would filter downstairs to the social hall.
Will there be no rentals
That is correct.
and social events other than those dealing with the religious service?
For members of the congregation, but typically they would be associated with a service.
Thank you.
If I may go back to a question that came up at the beginning of the meeting, I just want to state that There was a Natural Lands Trust Fund meeting where I gave a presentation. I believe the dates were February 28th of, I could pull it up for you, bear with me one moment. This way I could speak accurately. As you see, my binder has gotten very full from all of the hearings on this application. February 28th of 2024, there was an application heard, number 717, by the Ocean County Natural Lands Trust, which is the committee that acquired the contiguous 12-acre parcel, the former Puglisi Farm. The structures that were on that farm have since been demolished by the county. And then we had a subsequent meeting on July 24th, 2024, at which time the county did express interest in either acquiring or receiving the parcel as a donation. So if we would move forward as a subdivision, that opportunity is available to give the new small parcel that already has the wetlands and conservation constraints to the county. If the board so desired that we not proceed with a subdivision, then, as Mr. Borden testified, we would maintain the ownership of that parcel as we have for nearly a decade. I also want to address Mr. Tremor's question about the fire letter. I'm able to pull it up from my cloud, and I'll just run through the comments. The fire letter signed by Scott Roush makes no mention of the dome. They had no objection with the height of the building. It was specifically regarding, and excuse me for reading off of my phone, October 10th, 2022. The date is October 10th, 2022. Perhaps there is a more updated letter that I am unaware of. I have not received a copy, but I will say for the record that when this application appeared before the zoning board, we were showing the same structure. That did not change. So the building height would have been something available to the fire department when they reviewed the application at that time. There was no change to that.
So exactly, nothing has changed
To the
on this
structure.
whole application from the time he looked at it in 2022. It's
To the best of my
exactly the same.
knowledge, that is correct.
Okay, because that's one of my big concerns. We make changes, it has to go back to the fire department to be just reapproved. It's a very simple process, but it's something that's not been happening.
I believe that Mr. Borden recirculated the current documents to all of the various authorities. I don't have a copy of a letter if one was issued that is current, but the architecturals have not changed. There were some minor site plan changes that created a better flow for this site and for the township. So if I refer to that letter, his comments were specific to the hydrant location, code requirements for the hydrant, speaking with the MUA about it, doing rate flow tests pertaining to the water, ground fire lane markings, but no comments with regards to the structure itself or its height.
Just to be clear, I mean, fire's going to have to look at this anyway.
No, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So you're still going to be subject to all of those
Right.
conditions.
Yeah,
Certainly.
and if I might,
Yeah.
just so the record's clear, I think you need to have something in the planning board folder for this project. So while the use variance was at the zoning board, now that we're here for site plan and the circulation, which may or may not have been part of the 2022 report, I don't think it's unreasonable as part of resolution compliance, as Mr. Borden resubmits to Mr. Klee, we ask him just to run through the fire official's office again to make sure we have one, because I'm not sure that the fire official's report is part of this application.
Yeah, I
it's part
agree.
of the zoning
Yeah.
board application.
Yeah, we've made a lot of changes in the last 3 years, so I would prefer that.
I don't disagree that there were
we
not
update.
significant changes. For the purposes of making a clean record, they have to do resolution compliance one way or the other, recirculate it one
Yeah.
more time.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Very good.
You have in here a food prep staging area. What are you doing with that exactly?
There's no kitchen with actual cooking. It's intended for light refreshments. So for example, with your prior question about a bar mitzvah, if someone wants to serve cake, cookies, desserts, etc., there'll be a place for the waiters to stage and prep.
And though the time for a celebration like that, that would still close down around 9:30, the same as the services, or would that extend out?
I think it's foreseeable it may extend a little bit, but typically those events are held earlier in the evening, or on a Sabbath, again, when there's no vehicle traffic.
And then as far as the dome height, what was, why do you need it to be so high?
I think Mrs. Rubb testified to that. It was an aesthetic feature for the building, and in order to be able to incorporate natural light and insert windows, we had to exceed the height limit by just a few feet.
But you really don't need that in order to have the building, do you?
No, it's an aesthetic improvement. We said that it's not for human occupancy. We just think it's a nice architectural feature.
So taking 4 or 5 feet off, it wouldn't be a big deal if it was a problem.
I'm not an architect, so I couldn't tell you just lobbing 4 or 5 feet off of it. I'm sure the dome will shrink significantly in diameter and probably will look silly. You make the dome to fit the...
Well, I get what Lisa's saying. You know, it's a very high mounted dome where you could go a soft curve on it and knock 4 feet off it and make it more compliant.
Well, if I may point out one other thing, if we don't proceed with the minor subdivision and we're viewing this parcel as greater than 2 acres, then we in fact by right can go 40 feet because our front setback has a 60-foot setback requirement when we're providing 62.2 feet. And by increasing the setback 2 feet, we're entitled to 1 extra foot in the height. So instead of 39 feet, we'd be able to go 40 feet, and then our variance relief request would be just 2 feet.
That's what I'm saying, knock a couple feet off it, nobody's got a problem.
If we knock off a couple of feet, you're demolishing the dome because it would be unable to be built as inspired and desired.
There's a ratio that is required with the dome per the size of the building. So because, if you've studied architecture, there's a ratio, and you need to maintain that ratio for the aesthetic purposes. So it's necessary.
Madam Chair? I just wanted to close the loop on the use and the parking. I know board members had a concern, so. Mr. Hirsch, thank you for your testimony. You're very familiar with the plans for a long period of time. You understand there are 66 parking spaces being proposed?
What is the question?
Yes, you understand there are 66 parking spaces proposed?
Yes.
And you're confident that the use of the facility should not exceed the capacity of the parking that's being proposed?
Yes.
Thank you. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
I'm not sure you're the correct witness, but I'm sure we'll get the answer. The security booth that I see in the front, what is that for? And there's also a concern, if it's viewed as an accessory structure, you might have another variance there.
I am not qualified to answer with regards to whether there is a variance necessity and if it is by code or architecturally considered an accessory structure. But the purpose is just to have a sense of security for the community. Unfortunately, we live in a world where that has become of need. I can tell you personally, just in the last month, I walked by the site after dark and had garbage thrown at me out a window with various slurs that I cannot repeat. So having that sense of security is the purpose of the structure, and it has become commonplace amongst houses of worship and other religious institutions in the area.
Okay. And fine, would it be better on the other side of the driveway as people come into?
I'll defer to Mr. Borden on that.
And just maybe some additional testimony on the security booth, because I do have a concern that, you know, how big is this thing? What does it look like? How high is it? And how far setback is it from the road? And if it might require additional variance. And the only other question I have, and I'm sure it's not for this witness, there's a 6-foot solid fence along the southerly property line that appears to be encroaching into the front yard setback. So some testimony from the applicant in support of that, because you can't have a 6-foot solid fence in the front yard.
Okay, well, I think we have to call Mr. Borden up for both those questions.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Hirsch before he steps down?
Thank you.
Ian, if you wouldn't mind coming back up and addressing the two questions, one related to the security booth and the other with regard to the 6-foot solid fence encroaching on the front yard?
On the security booth, yeah, we propose just a very small, approximately 8-foot square structure next to the drive, as noted at the entrance. We do show a fence across the entire front of the property with a gate. The ordinance is silent on that, so it doesn't permit it. It doesn't not permit it. There's no statement in the ordinance about accessory other than like the mikveh building that I testified to. So I personally did not consider that a building. We called it a security booth. I know we commonly deal with something like this in the retirement community, for example, with the gated entrance. But it's really just large enough for one security person to get out of the weather, basically.
And what about the question with regard to, is that the proper location for
Yes.
it? Should it be on the other side, the entrance, as opposed to the exit? I believe is the question.
No, I think we put it there so that somebody entering the site will be on their driver's side. Obviously, you know, it's across the egress aisle, but I believe it's the correct place. It could be placed on the other side if there's a particular preference, but in my opinion, it's in the proper location. It's set back off the road more than 20 feet, so it's not up against. It's farther back than the parking, which is 15-foot setback, and at least 5 feet more than that. As far as the fence, I do see that we carried the 6-foot solid fence all the way to 15 feet from the right-of-way. We can end the solid fence at the front setback. That's just didn't notice that as far as it related. Obviously, what Mr. Klee is saying is correct. Any fence in the front yard setback must be a 4-foot open fence or a variance is required. It was not our intent to trigger a variance on that, so we would modify the fence to be a 4-foot open fence in the front yard on the sideline, consistent with the detail that runs across the front of the property.
What are your thoughts on the security booth? Does that need to be a separate structure?
I'm sorry?
Sharing services. So if a variance is required of that, we would ask to amend the complaint to add a variance. So obviously, you were not going to put a security booth behind the building. That's not really going to serve any purpose.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
first and foremost, I don't think it's a bad idea. I think if the congregants want it.
It's a good idea.
We should provide it to them. It's a structure. Okay, we don't talk about booths in the ordinance, so while I don't take offense to the debate, it's a structure. My recommendation is the board grant the variance for both the use, the location, and what it is for security purposes.
Dr. Campbell? So I've seen some of these booths in not so much in this area. It's unfortunately becoming new in this area. I've seen this in other communities throughout the country. It is quite common. Unfortunately, I like the idea. I think it's something we should be reviewing with our upcoming review and some of the other things that we're working on with the master plan. Just, it should probably be addressed, because I think it needs to be addressed, because unfortunately, it's going to be coming up
I think
here.
it's a good idea. Aesthetically, I'll assume that the architect is going to have some involvement so that it will blend with the rest of the property.
I think certainly the
It would
materials.
have been nice if we had seen that. And in the future, we keep that in mind.
Of course.
Nothing, not opposed to it by philosophy, but it should have been included.
Yeah, I'm going to concur with Mr. Peters' assessment of the situation. So it's definitely a structure. It's, you know, it's associated to the use on the property. So it's accessory in nature, clearly, you know, but I think that the safety aspect of this, you know, kind of warrants the variance, so to speak. I'll just, at the time we're deciding this, I just want to let the board know that we're also taking into consideration now this variance that we didn't anticipate having in the beginning.
No bathroom, no plumbing?
No.
Okay, thank you.
It's no different
Hopefully
than-
some heat and light,
Heat and light, yes.
No different than a shed.
Plumbing is
maybe air
different.
conditioning.
AC would be probably good. Yes, yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I was looking at the, one of the plans, I don't know, at the site plan A3, and under the EV-ready spaces, you have a proposed septic disposal bed. There's no septic, right?
No.
So why is it there?
I think that's just, I might have attached the wrong site plan, but there's no septic proposed. Yeah.
Ray, you're slacking, man.
Yeah, there's no septic proposed.
Ray.
I know, I thought you were going to catch that.
I think it's the wrong application. I think it's the wrong sheet, wrong page.
The only,
That sounds like it.
Slid in there.
Sounds like,
Maybe your original application.
I think the person who put the exhibits together attached the wrong file.
That's my guess.
It's a different street.
Yeah.
It looks all together.
I would tell you it was an employee, but unfortunately it was me.
Former employee.
Anyone else with comments, questions?
do we have a maximum capacity? I know we're doing 66 parking spots, but nowhere do I see a number. I was just curious.
The parking is based on the square footage of those rooms.
Right, but I'm just wondering what the occupancy, maximum occupancy
I'm
of
sure
the building.
occupancy is dictated by the building codes.
Well, the architect might know the answer to the occupancy thing.
Yeah,
She-
it
Okay,
probably
well,
in
that's my
IBC.
question. Thank you.
Yeah.
She has it.
Yeah, there's probably a specific IBC.
Yeah, sorry, I was just doing some quick math. For the size of our sanctuary, we're at 129 occupants.
Ray?
129.
129 occupants according to IBC. So that's a prescriptive number of occupants per square foot for the size of our sanctuary.
So does that mean that you limit your congregation to 129 people?
So again, that's the size that this room could accommodate, and so we design egress and plumbing fixtures according to that designation. It doesn't reflect the actual occupancy of the room. It could go up to, it could go higher or lower, but that's how the building code prescribes the occupancy.
Yeah, Lisa, so this is going to sound strange, but what happens with the IBC is that they actually take the square footage with the amount of people, but then they construct the doorway the entries and exits of the building according to how many people are allowed in the building. So the door frames actually have to be a specific, like, width, depending on how many people are actually allowed in the building. It's kind of weird, but that's how they do it.
And that's also the fire department
Yeah,
also.
it's fire, it's IBC, it's,
Yes.
you know.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other experts? Nope.
I'd like to open it to public now, please.
Is this cross-examination?
You want to do cross in general
Cross first.
together, unless anybody?
Yeah.
Seeing no one come forward, make a motion to close cross-examination.
Second.
Heller?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're back.
To general?
General. Let's open it to general questions from the public.
Seeing no one come forward, I move to close the general portion of this application.
Second, Bernstein.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Conclusion?
Yeah, just in conclusion, this says you have not really been along for the entire ride. It's been a long time coming to get here. We think with the new ordinance, the use is now permitted. The lot depth variance exists on the site today. It's just a triangle, doesn't have enough lot depth, nothing to do with the actual use of the site. And then, of course, the dome, we just think is an attractive feature for the building. And so we would, and of course, amending the plan to include the security booth, which we obviously believe is a safety issue and something that probably should be addressed in a future ordinance amendment, we would respectfully request that the board grant the applicant an approval.
I'd like to make a motion, or unless
Any
there's comments.
comments from the board? Any comments from our officials?
I'd like to make a motion to approve this application with the requested variances. When it comes to the dome, I think anything that is aesthetically pleasing and it provides an environmentally prudent aspect of bringing in natural light, which would lower the cost of the utilities and the electrical use for lighting. I think it's a good thing, not a bad thing. And of course, the security booth, unfortunately, in this day and age, is a requirement that we may see pop up more often.
Yeah, why don't we do this? Why don't we have the first vote on the subdivision? So let's do the first vote on the subdivision. We'll get through that, then we'll go on to the second vote for the plan.
I'll second the motion, but again, let's just make sure everything's updated through police and fire too.
Oh, you got a motion, it's on the floor
We
already.
got
We need to
yeah.
do two motions. We'll do
All
the
right,
first
so-
motion on the subdivision.
All right,
table that.
Mr. Shea, I think our motion's already
So,
live.
so now,
Do we have to table that
so
motion?
now we got a
So
live.
do I table my motion?
We need you to table the.
Okay, I'm
Table
going
the
to table my
motion.
motion, and I'm going to make a motion that we approve the subdivision of the lot for 26 Whitesville Road.
And
I
I'll
will
second
second
the
that.
tabling and second your motion.
All right, let's have a vote on
Subdivision.
the subdivision.
Mr. Bernstein?
Yes.
Ms. DeMarzo?
No, I don't think it's necessary.
Mr. Heller?
Yes.
Mr. Rogers? Yes. Mr. Treamer?
Yes.
Ms. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Dr. Campbell? Dr. Campbell?
Yes. Now we'll go to the tabled motion.
Mr. Sullivan.
Well,
Mr. Sullivan, it's all yours.
Make a new
Make a
motion.
All right, I'll make a new motion.
Yeah.
I move that we approve this application with the requested variances. Once again, security unfortunately is going to become an issue, I think, and is a necessary part of this. The dome, once again, I said, would bring in natural light, which is an environmentally pleasing aspect of this application, plus it's a beautification aspect, and the other minor variances that were required because of the depth of the lot. I move that we approve.
I'll second it. Bernstein?
Mr.
Vote,
Bern-
please.
Mr. Bernstein?
Yes.
Mr. Marzo?
No, again, I'm objecting to the height variance. It's not necessary.
Mr. Heller?
Yes, and great application.
Mr. Rogers? Mr. Dreamer?
Yes.
Ms. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Dr. Camp?
Yes. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Motion to close?
Please, make a motion.
I'll make a motion to close.
Second, Sullivan.
All,
Favor?
aye, thank you.
Good night, everybody.